Hi guys, so I did rate this 3.5 out of 5. I finished A Court of Wings and Ruin, and you guys know I've been rating the other two books, the previous ones, 4 stars, and I actually really enjoyed those two books. The pacing in this book was really strange. It faltered after like the 100-page mark, and this middle area was really slow paced. And there were some action scenes that had me excited, but for the most part, it was really, really slow. Some of this middle section did tie back to the end, so I did appreciate that. But I wanted to see more character development, specifically from Feyre, as she is High Lady now. I wanted to see her flourish. And by flourish, I wanted to see her become a higher, like, not being, but just higher royalty, everybody just have a little bit more respect for her. And it felt like nobody was really showing Favor any respect, and I feel like Sarah J Maas could have easily done this by having like side quests or side missions where she goes to different courts and see how the Highburn war is affecting different courts specifically and on a local level. And if you've seen Avatar The Last Airbender, they do this where they go to all the different nations and they see how the Fire Nation having control over everything affects everybody as a whole in minuscule little pieces, because a country is going to be affected as a whole by its individual areas and its individual groups of people. If Farah had gone to see these local issues and solve them, then I would have appreciated that a lot more, because it would have given her an opportunity to show that she can be High Lady, that she can solve these problems, and she would have had the ability to showcase some of her powers, because she has powers, and instead of using them and like using them frequently, she doesn't really use them. Like after she got back to the night court, she didn't really use them, and then she uses them at the meeting. She uses them in the final battle, but she's kind of just. And it sucks to say, but a lot of the books she's just kind of there, and I didn't appreciate that. I didn't appreciate that they kind of just made her just there. She's supposed to be High Lady in this book. She should have had a more prominent role. She should have had more character development. And then the way that they like Amryn talked to her at one point where she's like, "You're reminding me of Tamlin right now." I'm like, I don't appreciate that. And then Rhysand saying something really stupid at one point where he's like, if I needed to get back with Amarantha and like be her sexy slave again, then I would do it all over again just to prevent war. I was like, I don't know about that. And why would you say that in front of Feyre? That's kind of disrespectful to your partner. And then Feyre like kind of falls into a depression, and Cassian has to be the one that like fishes her out of it, because Rhysand, like he says sorry, but like Feyre goes with Cassian, and Cassian's like, "Hey, that wasn't cool what he said. You good?" And Favor's like, "Oh yeah, no, it's nothing. It's not something that I'm not used to." And then Mora's like, I'm fine. I'm so used to everybody like just making decisions on their own." And that was one problem that I had, where connected to that area where everybody was just having communication problems. It was also everybody was making really stupid decisions around the 200-page mark to 300-page mark, to the point where I was just like, what am I reading? Is this the same series that I have been reading? Because everybody's just doing their own thing instead of like actually communicating and being like, "Hey, I'm going to go to the bone carver. I know you don't like it, but I'm going to do it anyway." They're like, "Let's not tell Amryn. Let's not tell Amryn that we're going to the bone carver, because then she's going to disagree." Okay, how about we communicate with people? How about we talk to people? If one person's going to go over here, one person's going to go over here, then let's communicate, especially after Feyre goes, "Hey, since I'm High Lady now, please please, for the life of me, consult with me if you're going to make any decisions." And she tells this to Rhysand, and instead of Rhysand being like, "Yeah, yeah, no, 100%, I'm going to tell you everything," he doesn't tell her everything. And it felt like I was pulling teeth at some point in this book, because I was like, Why isn't Recent having open communication? Why isn't Farah having open communication with her partners as well? Like, if they're all a team, they have to all be a cohesive team. Why are we having this miscommunication trope where nobody's talking to each other? And also, they're just doing things and, like, oh, I didn't know. I didn't know you were doing this. I didn't know you were doing that. That's not fair that you were doing this. Well, that's not fair that you were doing that. So it made it like this really frustrating area to read where I was just like, can we all get our shit together? Can we all just seriously get our shit together? I just wanted to read a silly little book about superpowers and fairies. Let's get to more of that and less of the miscommunication. Let's be upfront. Like, let's actually, if you guys want to have a conversation kind of thing. Like, it just didn't make sense to me why people were just like not talking to each other. I was like, what the fuck? And like I said, this was weirdly paced. Like the first 100 pages and the last 200 pages are really good, but this middle area was filler. And I'm okay with filler if there's action in between, but there was like maybe one or two action scenes in between all of this to the point where I was just like, three, I should say. Three action scenes in between all of this, where I was like, come on. I need you to invent action. I need you to go, like I said, locally. Let's go somewhere. Let's go to a different court. Let's explore the world. Let's get out of Alaris. Like, let's go somewhere else. Like you told me there's all these different courts. Let's go. Let's go explore this country. I want to see these different courts. I want to see how they live. I want to see how they thrive. Why are we stuck in Valaris? Like, I love Valaris, but why are we stuck there primarily? We shouldn't just be stuck there. We should be exploring everything, every single court, every piece of this world. I want to see. The one thing I did appreciate though was Nesta building her relationship with Farah and Farah trying to build her relationship with Nesta in this book, which I really, really loved every scene that Nesta was in. I was like, oh, at least Nesta's the voice of reason right now because she needs to be telling people what's going on and she needs to stick up for Feyre because people were talking to Feyre crazy. Like people that normally wouldn't talk to Feyre crazy were talking to her crazy, and Nesta was like, hey, back the fuck up, leave her alone. And I was like, oh, thank God for Nesta, because somebody got to stick up for Feyre. Feyre's not sticking up for herself. And they built this relationship up in the first and second book with Rhysand. And then she doesn't focus on the relationship with Feyre and Rhysand in the third book. And I wanted more of that. I understand it's war, but you give me sexy scenes in the second book, and I'm just like, oh, I'm all hot and heavy. And I wanted that in the third book too. I'm like, I just want to see Feyre and Rhysand just having a normal relationship. But instead, there's a war going on, and they just act like they can't have a normal relationship. That's weird to me. That's strange to me. I think we should have spent a little bit more time on this book, and I think they should have just added a lot more to this book, even though the middle half is filler, and it should have just been this big. We would have had more time with characters, there would have been more conflicts, we'd have more opportunity to build relationships, because that's Feyre needs to build her relationship with her sisters. Unless SJM is saving it for another book, but it's one of those things where this book alone felt like it should have been bigger, or like there should have just been more character development. Feyre should have had more character development. The Rhysand and Feyre relationship should have been built more. Yes, the Cassian and Nesta thing was beautiful. It was cute, but this should have just, I feel like she needed to work on this one a little bit more, or somebody told her, "Hey, you need to cut out a few scenes," and she cut way too many. But this one let me down. I love this series, but this one let me down. It was good at the very end, I will admit that, but to get through it, that was rough. This one was a rough one to get through, even though I enjoyed it kind of.